Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving deep into the rapidly evolving European short-term rental landscape. Now, if you're a property owner, especially in a highly seasonal market like Kavala, you've probably seen this scary headlines lately. I mean, seasonal markets rely so heavily on those summer peaks that any whisper of new regulations can feel like an absolute existential crisis for your income. But today, we're going to flip the script a bit. We're going to discover why those sweeping, headline-grabbing bans aren't actually your immediate problem, and why something called platform dependency is the real, everyday threat to your business. Here is our quick roadmap for today to cut through the noise. We'll be covering 1. The Airbnb ban reality. 2. The true risk, which is platform dependency. 3. Inside the booking data. 4. Rented versus owned demand. And 5. Why the listing isn't the product. Let's get right into it. All right, part 1, the Airbnb ban reality. Are these citywide bans actually the threat they're made out to be? Let's just tackle the elephant in the room right away. You've likely seen quotes exactly like this one. Barcelona intends not to renew the licenses of over 10,000 authorized tourist apartments by November 2028. Wow, that dramatic policy change in Spain triggered absolute panic across the industry. It's making owners in much smaller, seasonal markets like Kavala, Greece, look around and wonder, wait, is my city next on the chopping block? When a massive European hub makes a move like this, the ripple effects are felt everywhere, and honestly, it causes a lot of unnecessary fear. Let's take a breath and look at what is actually happening on the ground. Europe is absolutely not introducing some giant continent-wide ban, not at all. Instead, governments are using highly localized, surgical rules tailored to a specific city's housing pressures. For instance, Amsterdam uses a strict nightly cap of just 30 nights a year, which even drops to 15 in heavily congested areas. Paris caps primary residences at 90 days. So you see, it's all about targeted restrictions in specific neighborhoods to manage local real estate, not some blanket prohibition meant to destroy the tourism industry. So the golden question, is Kavala next? Well, honestly, there is zero credible evidence of a Barcelona-style phase-out happening in Kavala today. You simply cannot take the rules designed for a congested city of 1.7 million people and map them onto a highly seasonal destination whose entire local economy relies on summer visitors. That being said, Greece is actively introducing specific property and safety standards, like the recent Law 5170/2025, and they are using localized registration freezes where housing pressure actually demands it, like in certain tight districts of Athens. The takeaway here? Regulation is incredibly nuanced, not one size fits all. Okay, moving on to part 2. If sweeping local bans aren't the immediate looming threat, what is? Let's talk about the true risk, platform dependency. This is what should actually be keeping you up at night. Platform dependency is basically a massive distribution risk where your entire accommodation business relies completely on a single commercial ecosystem. Think about that for a second. Your visibility, your ability to acquire guests, your hard-earned transaction history and reviews, if all of that lives on just one platform, your total income could literally vanish overnight. One random algorithm tweak, one accidentally suspended account, or a sudden change in their terms of service, and your revenue stream is wiped out before you even wake up and pour your morning coffee. It's like night and day when you compare a vulnerable, isolated listing to a resilient, networked property. The vulnerable setup is totally self-managed and relies 100% on one online travel agency, or OTA. If that search ranking drops, boom, demand disappears instantly. You have zero control. But the resilient model, that's managed within a local network. Sure, it still uses major OTAs because, let's face it, ignoring their global reach is just bad business, but it has diversified its routes to market. It leans on a direct website, it cultivates returning guests, builds referrals, and leverages local partnerships to cushion any sudden blows from the algorithms. Let's dive into part 3, inside the booking data. Because it's one thing to talk about this diversification stuff in theory, but it's another entirely to see the hard numbers. What we have here is absolutely fascinating. We're looking at a localized data set from Planbnb's 2025-2026 Host Hub data, covering 838 actual booking events right across Kavala. This isn't guesswork, it's not some broad national average. This is a crystal clear, on-the-ground picture of market realities and traveler behavior for the upcoming seasons. And the breakdown here completely shatters what most people assume. Look at this. Booking.com is pulling in a massive 69.2% of the reservations. Offline reservations account for 18%. And Airbnb, it's sitting way down at just 11.4%, with direct reservations making up the final 1.4%. So calling your short-term rentals simply an Airbnb business in this market is, well, wildly inaccurate. But more importantly, this exposes a terrifying distribution risk. Relying on Booking.com for nearly 70% of your business is an incredibly uncomfortable concentration of risk in one single middleman. So, what's the game plan? Diversification. Absolutely. The strategic response isn't to just angrily abandon these powerful platforms. You can't replicate their global marketing budgets and consumer trust on your own. The real goal is to preserve that massive platform reach while systematically building up your direct, offline, and referral demand right alongside it. That is how you build a safety net for when platforms inevitably change the rules of the game. Which brings us perfectly to part 4, rented versus owned demand. Let's see how taking control of your audience actually works in practice. There is a fundamental difference between these two concepts. Rented demand is essentially borrowing attention from the big platforms by paying them intermediary commissions. It's highly profitable, it's necessary, but make no mistake, the platform owns that guest relationship. Owned demand means travelers are actively seeking out your specific, trusted local brand. It's your capacity to be found and chosen directly. Now, this is permission-based and definitely slower to build, but over time, that effort compounds into a rock-solid, resilient asset that nobody can ever take away from you. Now, a super important warning here. Earning lawful guest relationships doesn't mean you can just export a massive pile of emails from a platform and start spamming people. You absolutely must comply strictly with GDPR and e-privacy rules. Owned demand means lawfully earning a permission-based audience. You have to offer genuine value, like giving guests the option to voluntarily subscribe to a really great Kavala destination guide. You want an audience that wants to hear from you because your content is genuinely useful, not just because you're blasting them with discount codes. Finally, part 5. The listing isn't the product. We really need to redefine what exactly it is you're selling to your guests in a market that's getting more crowded by the minute. With European platform stays averaging a staggering 2.6 million tourists per night in 2025, just throwing up a listing and hoping for the best? Yeah, that simply won't cut it anymore. Simply publishing a listing is no longer a distribution strategy. The competition is already here. They're highly professional, heavily capitalized, and optimizing every single digital touchpoint to capture the very best bookings. To survive and thrive, you have to build a defensive moat around your business. Look, a new remote management company can easily just go buy software to automate their messages or adjust pricing. But turning years of localized hospitality experience into a true advantage, that requires deliberate action. First, strict property selection, getting the right location, condition, and commercial potential. Second, highly professional positioning, which means dynamic pricing and perfect listings across multiple channels. And finally, building a trusted local brand that delivers flawlessly reliable operations, from pristine cleanings to amazing on-the-ground guest support. So here is the absolute bottom line. Your listing is literally just the digital storefront. Your actual product is the whole shebang backing it up. It's a legally compliant property under the Greek framework. It's a deeply dependable physical stay that looks exactly like the photos. It's a rock-solid operational reputation with real local support. And it's a durable, diversified route to finding future guests. That entire ecosystem, that is what you're actually selling, and that is what keeps guests coming back year after year. I'm going to leave you with one final, pretty provocative thought to chew on. If Airbnb completely vanished tomorrow, where exactly would your next guest come from? Are you managing a vulnerable, isolated listing, or have you built a resilient, diversified hospitality business that's ready for whatever the market throws at you next? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Start building that moat today, and I'll catch you in the next one.